Are you convinced you don't want to come tomorrow?
I mean, I don't think it's a good idea. Look, call me after you talk with the sheriff, but like, I don't think it's a great idea. I think this is, you know.
Let me say this too, just to be clear. They're going to make me stay here tomorrow anyway to talk to my insurance investigators. This is really, I'll talk to you more, but I'm just saying.
I'm so sorry. You must have such you must be so traumatized.
No, what I am is someone who, I don't want to do this for a living anymore, I don't want to be a public person, and, you know, I'm the one holding the gun in my hand that everybody was supposed to have taken care of. They always hand me a cold gun. Did she tell you what's going on? I'm trying to convince her to come. I think we should come. They just spend the time here, and they're going to do what they got to do with and deal with what they got to do with, and we shouldn't let them. We'll go, I won't work, and we'll go enjoy ourselves. It's all paid for. And they're not going to give us the money back.
And we should be staying away from the vultures here.
Are they outside?
No, but I imagine they will be. At some point, they're going to find out.
I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea. You should come for that reason also.
Fascinating moment in the interrogation room. Alec Baldwin speaking to someone, that might be his wife, I don't know, nanny, his publicist, I don't know who he's talking to, but trying to get him there. Interesting, though, that he's like, might as well stay here and have a good time. I don't know if he knew that Helena Hutchins had died, that he had shot and killed her. I think maybe at that point, maybe he thought he just shot her, which is bad enough, right? But I'm not sure if he knew that she was dead or had died at that moment. Anyhow, Alec Baldwin did a lot of speaking in that interrogation room. You know, you have the right to remain silent, but he did not exercise that right. Let's play for you more of this interview. This is a newly released investigative materials. The investigation is continuing. They have not made a decision yet on whether or not Alec Baldwin or anyone else will be charged criminally in this case. Let's watch.
Who handed you your weapon in the day?
Hannah.
Hannah did. Okay. And physically handed or put it in the holster?
Handed it to me.
Okay.
She would show me the gun.
Okay.
Or she'd say, cold gun. She'd say, test it, or some language to indicate she handed me the gun, then it was fine. And she'd say, do you want to check?
Okay.
And I always didn't want to insult her. I said, we never had a problem.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm good.
So was it the first rehearsal that the incident happened?
Yeah, I believe so, because we talked about, as we were going to lunch, we're always talking about what's next.
Okay.
So as we were rehearsing scenes, he said, now I want to do a scene where we've done other shots before lunch. He said, when we come back from lunch, we'll do this. And he said, I want you to pull out, show me. Because I was showing you what I thought was the best angle to see the glint of the gun under my coat. Because you want the scene to work, the shot to work. So where the holster's here, the gun is here, my coat comes around, and I held my hand like it was like I was just cupping my hands. Like I was just resting.
Okay.
And I showed him in the rehearsal. So when we came back after lunch, we rehearsed for the camera, and I took the gun. I'm showing him. I'm going to go like this, like this, like this. The cock and turn, bang! It went off. The first time.
Okay. So it was your.
It was the very first time that we were shooting that shot, that we were rehearsing for that shot.
Have you, in your experience, ever been told that you're not supposed to cock the gun?
No.
No. You're okay.
He wanted me to cock the gun in the scene.
Okay.
He wanted it as part of the scene. He said, I'm going to take the gun out, turn, and cock it into to the right, my left, to their right of the lens.
After the gun was shot, who did you hand the gun to?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. I made everybody freaked out. All I knew was the gun went off. She hit the floor. He hit the floor. He started screaming. He was in a lot of pain. She went into shock. She didn't talk.
Right.
Her eyes are rolling back in her head.
And then I want to come back to this. You said that when the gun went off, you experienced no kick.
Yeah, there was no recoil. There was no recoil. But that I remember.
Okay.
I mean, literally, I'm holding the gun, and literally slowly pull, turn, cock, bang. As soon as I cock it, bang! And I jumped. I mean, you obviously, that's the last thing you think is going to happen.
So what does this mean, right? You don't have to speak to investigators, but he did, and he's very open. He's not hiding anything. But is this helping him? Is this hurting him? What will a DA do with all of this, right? The investigation is continuing. Let's bring back in our think tank, Bernarda Villalona, Nima Romani, Kirk Nurmi, still with us. Nima, former federal prosecutor. Bernarda, former senior homicide prosecutor. But Nima, let me start with you. As you listen to Alec Baldwin, on the one hand, I could see someone looking at that and saying, well, he's got nothing to hide. He's being very open. He's just trying to help investigators. On the other hand, he's speaking a lot. What he's describing, is it consistent with exactly what happened? That's debatable about the finger on the trigger, et cetera. Your thoughts about what we're hearing from Alec Baldwin describing what happened that day?
Yeah, Vinny, I've reviewed all the investigative materials, and I think it helps Alec Baldwin in his criminal case. Obviously, no criminal charges yet, but I think it makes it less likely that he is charged. Obviously, we have no intent for murder. It'd be a manslaughter charge, but everything he said has been more or less consistent. I think it hurts him with this civil case, but I really have 3 takeaways based on what I've seen. The first is that what he says, who handed him the gun, is inconsistent with what he told ABC and George Stephanopoulos. He told him that Assistant Director Dave Halls gave him the gun, and during that interview, he says no. Armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed gave him the gun. So I think that's one important inconsistency. But the 2 bases for civil liability that he really, they've already filed against him, both personally and as the production companies, he admits to pointing a gun at another human being. Now, his argument is going to be that the cinematographer told him to, but he also admits to cocking the gun. Now, during the interview with ABC, he says, I never pulled the trigger. But during the interview with law enforcement, he admits to cocking the gun. And I think those 2 things are going to be the basis for him to be held civilly liable, but I don't think he's going to be charged criminally, Vinny.
And you talk about finger on the trigger. The video we were showing is rehearsal that took place before the shooting, obviously, because they're not going to do anything afterwards. But as you see it, his finger is in and on that trigger, and he uses the thumb of the same hand to pull the hammer back. So we know the gun went off, and we know from the experts we've had on the show how that gun gets fired. Kirk Nurmi, from what you're hearing from Alec Baldwin, I know you, as a defense, you don't say anything. But he is. He's speaking. He's being very open. Is he harming himself here? Is he getting himself closer to an indictment or further away from an indictment with these statements?
I don't think so. And Nima's right. There's some inconsistencies there, but those inconsistencies, are they going to make a prosecutor or motivate a prosecutor to make charges? I don't think so, because look, we're just talking about this particular moment in time when we're talking about the negligence or the recklessness regarding a manslaughter charge. We're not talking about who handed him the gun. We're talking about what he did with it, what assurances he would have had, et cetera. We heard him talk about having a cold gun, right? The set term, a cold gun. So in that situation, I don't know that there's any recklessness or negligence on his part that we might typically see with a reckless homicide, a drunk driving, even Kim Potter grabbing the wrong weapon. We're not seeing any of that kind of negligence on his part and as it relates to criminal liability. So I think he's ultimately has helped himself in terms of the criminal case. And those discrepancies Neiman talked about might be the basis for a civil case.
Yeah, civil case. From my perspective, it's over. It's over. Just, figure out how big the check is going to be and who's writing the check, right? Bernardo Villalone, I want you to take a listen to the armorer because she was interviewed as well, Hannah Gutierrez. Here's some of what she had to say.
I heard like the shot, and Sarah was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Must have been a popper." And I like turned around, and then I heard them say medic emergency, and I was like, "What the?" And then I like checked in and I like looked and I saw Alec on the ground and I was like, oh, not Alec, Joel. And I was like, what the was it, the gun? And Dave was like, yeah, it was the gun. And so I was like, I walked in and I like tried to see what was happening or like where the gun was, to secure the weapons on set. And I got yelled at, and I ran out, and Dave brought me the gun, and I opened the gun up, and one of the dummies somehow had been discharged.
Well, it wasn't a dummy that was discharged. It was an actual bullet that shot and killed Helena Hutchins and shot the director. Let me ask you, Bernardo, someone, I think, has to be charged here. If we're in this world now where we are charging people for accidents like Kim Potter, someone put a live round in that gun. Somehow a live round was in that gun, and people didn't check. People didn't make sure there wasn't a live round in that gun. Somebody has to be charged criminally, involuntary manslaughter.
Well, it's not going to be Alec Baldwin based on what we know so far. Unless you tell me that there's some kind of text messages or some calls or something where he's like, I can't stand this woman. She needs to die. She needs to go. So there's some kind of plotting to take her out. I don't see any charges for him. In terms of the woman that we just heard from, I want to see, is there anything that is inconsistent in the sense of that they find out that she was the one who put the live cartridges in there, and then she tells the police something different. Because with a lot of prosecutions, the way that defendants dig themselves a hole is by saying something that is so materially inconsistent to what they can discredit, the prosecution can discredit. In the end, neither of these two people, Alec Baldwin or this woman, should have spoken to the police. They didn't have to speak to the police. They could have automatically just had an attorney present who will advise them not to speak to them. If they decide to speak to the police later, let's arrange something with the prosecutor where the statements can't be used against you. But that's when you need an experienced trial attorney by your side. I don't know why Alec Baldwin didn't have one.
He's Alec Baldwin. Come on.
He knows better.
Come on. You know the personality. And again, I mean, he seems to be very honest in what he is saying and trying to recollect what happened that day. But I don't know. I am still not on that boat that says for sure Alec Baldwin should not be charged here, based upon who is getting charged around the country for things that are somewhat similar to all of this. All right, we've got more of Alec Baldwin.